Before the Bills game, the Browns' draft strategy wasn't set in stone. But afterward, after watching Shedeur Sanders take hit after hit while his offensive line coach explained away the protection issues, it was clear, the plan had to change. The front office didn't just see a struggling O-line, they saw a coaching philosophy that couldn't handle NFL speed or adversity. The decision to shift draft capital toward protection wasn't a tweak, it was a pivot away from coaching failure. The change is strategic but also symbolic. It says the Browns are done hoping poor coaching can somehow be patched by raw talent. It says that protecting a franchise quarterback like Sanders isn't just an offensive priority, it's a test of leadership and vision. By cutting ties now, Haslam and Berry are signaling a hard reset, not just in personnel but in purpose. Because without protection, everything else falls apart.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
This situation starts at the very top because when things break this loudly, ownership always hears it first. Jimmy Haslam didn't wake up one morning suddenly confused about why the Browns looked disorganized up front. The frustration had been building. Loss after loss. Press conferences getting harder to sit through. And most importantly, a rookie quarterback taking hits that never should have happened. What finally pushed it over the edge wasn't just the losses. It was the explanation. The offensive line coach stepping to the mic and framing the chaos as a quarterback problem. Not a preparation problem. Not a coaching problem. But a cadence problem. Different quarterbacks, different rhythms, different voices. As if that alone explains why protections collapse and assignments get missed. That's the moment ownership checks out emotionally. Because when a coach starts explaining failure instead of owning it, the alarm bells ring. Haslam isn't new to football chaos, but he knows when accountability disappears, the rot spreads fast. The on-field product backed up every concern. Blocking broke down early and often. Defenders were getting free paths through gaps that shouldn't exist at this level. Penalties piled up, killing drives before they could breathe. And none of it looked accidental. It looked systemic. What made it worse was hearing that the coaching staff leaned on practice success as proof things were fine. Practice reps, clean looks, controlled environments. But Sundays don't care about clean environments. Games introduce injuries, noise, pressure, and chaos. That's the job. Preparing players for chaos is literally the point. Instead, the message coming out was that practice wasn't translating. That's not bad luck. That's an admission of failure. If what you teach can't survive game speed, it wasn't good teaching to begin with. And right in the middle of all of this is Shedeur Sanders. A rookie quarterback doing everything you want a young franchise player to do. Asking questions. Digging into protections. Trying to understand why something worked on Wednesday and collapsed on Sunday. The irony is brutal. The same coach pointing to quarterback variability also praised Sanders for his communication and growth. Said he was proactive. Said he was engaged. Said he was learning. Those statements don't coexist with the blame being placed on cadence. You can't applaud a quarterback's leadership while implying he's the reason your unit can't function. Sanders wasn't freelancing. He wasn't ignoring coaching. He was leaning in. And the reward for that effort was constant pressure and unnecessary hits. That's how quarterbacks lose trust fast. Speaking. From the front office perspective, this wasn't difficult to diagnose. Andrew Berry and his staff saw the same film everyone else did. Missed assignments. Journeyman getting exposed. No real depth. No flexibility when injuries hit. The most damning part wasn't the injuries themselves. Every NFL team deals with injuries. The problem was how little changed once they happened. Same issues. Same breakdowns. Same excuses. That's when development gets questioned. Because if backups aren't ready, someone failed long before game day. Insiders made it clear the plan is shifting. Draft capital is being earmarked for protection. Not band-aids. Not temporary fixes. Actual investment. That tells you everything you need to know about how the current coaching situation is viewed internally. Listening to Sanders speak publicly only sharpens the contrast. He doesn't dodge responsibility. He doesn't throw teammates under the bus. He talks about learning, adjusting, and being better. That's leadership, especially from a rookie. What he never does is point fingers. And that silence says more than any quote. Because quarterbacks feel pressure long before fans see it. They sense when schemes don't hold up. When timing breaks. When protection rules aren't clean. Sanders' growth under these conditions is actually the most important part of this entire situation. It shows the investment was right. It also raises the stakes. Because wasting that development window with bad coaching is how franchises derail themselves. Zooming back out, the Browns' issues weren't isolated to one position group, but the offensive line magnified everything. Bad protection kills play calling. It limits the offense. It forces conservative decisions. And it exposes the quarterback. Special teams miscues. Defensive lapses. Penalties. All of it compounded. But the offensive line is where order should exist. It's supposed to be the stabilizer. Instead, it became the excuse generator. When a coach openly admits he was more effective with a consistent lineup at Stanford, that's not context. That's a red flag. The NFL does not give you consistency. Adaptability isn't a bonus trait here. It's the baseline requirement. And Andrew Berry. That's why the decision was inevitable. This wasn't about one bad game or one bad quote. It was about a philosophy that didn't survive NFL reality. Protecting the franchise quarterback isn't optional. It's fundamental. Haslam and Berry aren't pretending this fixes everything overnight. But it resets the standard. Accountability comes first. Development matters. Excuses don't. The message is clear moving forward. Sanders is the future and the organization knows it. The protection around him has to reflect that belief. Coaching has to match that urgency. If you're not equipped to handle adversity, this league will expose you quickly. If you've been watching this unfold and shaking your head, you're not alone. Let me know what you think about how this was handled, where the Browns go next, and whether this reset came too late or right on time. Make sure to like the video, share it with other Browns fans, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more breakdowns like you could see it coming in the post-game interviews. Kevin Stefanski looked like he was answering for problems that weren't his to fix. There's a look coaches get when their side of the ball is doing everything it can, and it's still not enough. And that look was all over Stefanski's face by the time reporters started asking about missed protections and blown line assignments. He didn't name names. He didn't lash out. But the frustration was baked into every clipped sentence. We've got to execute better. We've got to clean that up. It's the language of someone watching things fall apart that were never solid to begin with. The polite phrasing of internal chaos. It was painfully clear that the offensive line coaching had reached its expiration date. Everyone around the organization knew it. Even the players looked like they were just trying to survive 4 quarters without something else breaking down. That's not football. That's triage. It all boiled over during the Bills game. A matchup that was supposed to be a measuring stick turned into a reality check. The Browns couldn't keep their quarterback upright. Couldn't sustain drives. Couldn't get any kind of rhythm offensively. And yet again, it wasn't about 1 or 2 guys messing up. It was the system itself breaking down under the pressure. Every defensive stunt from Buffalo landed. Every pressure package confused the line. And every mistake put Sanders one step closer to injury. The pocket collapsed more often than not, and any attempt at building momentum got buried under sacks, false starts, and holding calls. It was brutal to watch. What stood out most wasn't just the physical breakdowns, but how unprepared they looked for them. That's the part that sticks. Because these weren't surprises. These were looks the Bills have shown all season. And somehow the Browns looked like they were seeing it for the first time. Segment match. Shedeur Sanders never had a chance to settle in. From the first snap he was dodging pressure. Back foot throws. Rollouts under duress. No clean pocket. No time to read through progressions. And yet he kept fighting. Taking hits, getting back up, trying to make something happen. That kind of grit is what franchises dream of. But it shouldn't be required every single down. The number of times Sanders had to make a play off script wasn't innovation. It was survival. He's a rookie, not a magician. The real issue was that the coaching staff didn't adjust. The protection scheme stayed static. The blitz pickups didn't evolve. No quick game plan to counteract the pressure. Just a stubborn commitment to a game plan that clearly wasn't working. That game sealed it. After that kind of performance, there's nothing left to evaluate. Jimmy Haslam didn't need another meeting. He didn't need more tape. He needed a change. The kind that sets a tone for the rest of the locker room. Because when your quarterback is clearly giving everything and the coaching isn't rising to meet him, that's not just a tactical issue, it's a cultural one. You cannot afford to waste the rookie contract window of a potential franchise quarterback. And you definitely can't do it by holding on to staff who've lost the ability, or the will, to adapt. So the message went out. Changes are coming. Accountability is back. The line coach? Gone. And while that doesn't fix everything, it sends a message that status quo isn't an option. The worst part? Sanders was banged up after the game. Nothing official from the team, but he was slow getting up more than once. Trainers hovered. Cameras caught him wincing on the sideline. You don't need an injury report to know the damage is real. And that's what's at stake. Every hit that doesn't have to happen chips away at the future. There's a cost to chaos, and it's measured in bruises, confidence, and wasted potential. Sanders isn't broken, yet. But the longer he has to carry the offense behind a failing protection unit, the closer you get to a breaking point. That's why the coaching changes had to happen now. Before another hit goes too far. Before frustration turns into disillusionment. Before the locker room stops believing that things can actually. Andrew Berry's next moves will define the Browns for the next 5 years. The personnel decisions. The draft strategy. The replacement hires. All of it revolves around one question: how do you protect the future? He's already made it clear through insiders, draft capital is going to be spent on the offensive line. No more bargain bin free agents. No more patchwork depth charts. The mission is to build a wall around Sanders and make sure he's still standing in December, not just September. And this isn't about panicking. It's about course correction. Acknowledging that the staff didn't develop the backups. That the playbook didn't evolve. That the team wasn't prepared for the adversity that always comes in the NFL. The entire season has been one long exposure of what happens when coaching doesn't match talent. The Browns had moments, flashes of potential, exciting plays, even full drives that showed promise. But none of it sustained. And that's on the staff. You don't need every game to be perfect. But you do need growth. You need to see mistakes being fixed. Adjustments being made. That's what separates real development from empty reps. And too often this season the Browns looked like a team stuck on repeat. Same breakdowns. Same missed assignments. Same excuses. That's why fans started getting louder. Why media pressure picked up. And why the locker room needed a reset. Sanders, NFL match compilation. Through all of it, Sanders kept showing up. Every snap, every game, every interview. Owning the role. Taking responsibility. Looking like the most mature guy on the field even when things around him weren't working. He's the reason this situation is urgent. Because he's worth building around. You don't get many chances to land a quarterback with this level of mental poise and physical talent. And once you have him, the countdown starts. Because rookie contracts don't last forever. And confidence, once shaken, is hard to rebuild. That's why this isn't just about one coach losing his job. It's about changing the trajectory of a franchise that can't afford to waste its best shot at long-term success in years. And Andrew Berry. The partnership between Haslam and Berry has been through its share of turbulence. But on this issue they're aligned. The offensive line room needed to be gutted. The development pipeline failed. And the coaching was not up to standard. That alignment is rare in NFL front offices, and it matters. Because it means the decisions won't get walked back at the first sign of discomfort. The Browns are committing to rebuilding the line with urgency. Not just for protection but for culture. When the line gets better, everything opens up. Play calling becomes more creative. Sanders gets more time. Running lanes appear. It's not just about avoiding sacks, it's about unlocking the entire offense. Stefanski is now in the spotlight. With one problem removed, the pressure shifts to execution. The excuses are gone. The margin for error is thinner. But he still has his quarterback. And now he has the green light to demand more from the next group of coaches. It's a crossroads moment. Either the Browns become the kind of team that protects their future and builds smartly, or they fall back into old habits, cycling through staff, blaming youth, and ignoring the real issues. There's a real shot here. But it starts with accountability. And for once, that step was actually taken. The collapse didn't happen in one game. It built up. Week after week, the Browns looked like a team just trying to survive the snap. Not impose their will. Not execute cleanly. Just survive. And every time a blown protection put Shedeur on the ground, the bigger problem grew louder. This team wasn't ready for the speed, physicality, or complexity of real NFL adversity. Every loss looked the same. And that's the giveaway. It's not randomness. It's pattern. Defenders streaming through untouched. Zero adjustments from the sideline. The same press conference phrases getting recycled, while fans are forced to watch a quarterback doing everything he can to keep the offense on life support. By the time the locker room started echoing the same frustrations as the fan base, it was already too late for subtle changes. The system had to be reset. Because you can't run an NFL offense on theory and excuses. When Shedeur stepped to the podium after that Bills game, you could feel it. The disappointment was real. The tone was calm, but the message was loud. He didn't throw shade. He didn't call anyone out. But the subtext? Completely clear. He knows this offense is broken. He knows it's not sustainable. And he knows what's at risk. He answered every question like a vet. Talked about learning from adversity. About watching more film. About executing his role. But nowhere in his answers did you hear confidence in the people tasked with protecting him. He didn't say it directly because he didn't have to. The tape already told the story. Quarterbacks at his level don't speak recklessly. They protect the team even when the team doesn't protect them. And that's exactly what Shedeur did. But behind the professionalism was a quarterback carrying way more than just the offense. That's what made the decision from Jimmy Haslam feel different. This wasn't reactive. It was protective. Firing a coach mid-season isn't about finding a savior. It's about stopping the damage. Halting the erosion before it reaches the player you've built your entire future around. Haslam didn't want to get here. But the coaching staff left him no choice. They blamed quarterback cadences. They talked about preseason consistency. They acted like the solution was to keep things stable when the building was already on fire. And that's how leadership loses faith. This wasn't just a bad scheme or a bad week. It was philosophical failure. The coach admitted he was better when everything went his way. That doesn't work here. This isn't college. No NFL season gives you the luxury of. And for Andrew Berry, the failures were unacceptable. The inability to develop backup linemen. The lack of creativity in protections. The absence of in-game adaptability. All of it reflected poorly on a team that's supposed to be in a win-now window. Berry knows talent when he sees it. And he saw the same thing everyone else did. Shedeur Sanders was doing everything right, and the system around him was dragging him down. That's not something you wait on. You fix it before it becomes unfixable. That's why we're about to see a massive reshuffling. Draft picks will be spent. Free agency will be targeted. New coaches will be brought in who don't need perfect conditions to be competent. Coaches who teach, not just survive. Because that's what the moment demands. The toll this season has taken on Shedeur isn't just physical. It's mental. Every time he steps to the sideline and the tablet shows another missed block or busted assignment, it chips away at confidence. Not in himself, but in the infrastructure. You don't want your quarterback having to think about survival. He should be thinking about timing, progressions, reads. Instead, he's been thinking about when the next blitz is coming and whether anyone's going to pick it up. There were entire quarters where Sanders barely had time to finish a drop back before the pocket evaporated. That's not football. That's malpractice. And the fact that he didn't completely unravel is a testament to his discipline. But the clock is ticking. Watching the Browns try to operate each week became an exercise in waiting for the collapse. They'd come out with a scripted drive that looked polished, maybe even hopeful. But by the second quarter, defenses adjusted and the Browns couldn't. Not because they lacked heart, but because the coaching couldn't respond fast enough. Every opponent knew the weak point, pressure the line, and the offense folds. They brought extra guys. They twisted the fronts. And every time it worked, because the offensive line didn't have the tools to adjust. And the staff didn't teach them how. That's the part that's inexcusable. Everyone has bad matchups. But you're supposed to prepare your guys for the storm. The Browns? They handed their quarterback a paper umbrella. To his credit, Stefanski has held the locker room together. He hasn't deflected. He's taken the hits in the pressers. But this moment forces his hand. Because now the worst-kept secret is out. If the line doesn't improve, it won't just cost games, it'll cost careers. He's not going to get another year of grace. Not with the expectations surrounding Sanders. Not with the investment the front office is prepared to make. Stefanski has to make the next hires count. No more loyalty to underperformers. No more patience for empty development promises. It's now or never for a staff that has everything it needs except the one thing that matters most: competence under pressure. Sanders, NFL match compilation. The silver lining in this mess is Sanders himself. Because he's proven that despite the dysfunction, he's everything the franchise hoped for. Boys, smart, tough, resilient, and aware of the bigger picture. His numbers don't tell the full story, but the tape does. Escaping pressure, extending plays, making smart throws while getting hit, and most importantly, never blaming his teammates. That's how culture gets built, even when the foundation is cracked. And that's why the Browns can't afford to get this wrong again. Because if you give Sanders the right support, the right protection, and a coaching staff that understands how to evolve, the ceiling changes. Completely. And Andrew Berry. Haslam and Berry now have a singular job: protect the asset. Build around the quarterback. And never let bad coaching linger long enough to cause real damage again. They've already made the first move. And that sets a tone. But what comes next will define the next 3 seasons. It's not just about hiring another position coach. It's about hiring a mindset. One that teaches. One that prepares. One that adapts. Because this league doesn't wait. And the Browns are out of excuses. Go back and rewatch the Bills game if you want to see what this team's future hinges on. Sanders took a beating and still kept fighting. Still kept trying to make something happen. Still looked like the guy everyone hoped he'd be. But here's the truth, that can't happen again. Not like that. Not for 4 quarters of constant breakdowns and no answers. That's how quarterbacks get hurt. That's how careers get shortened. And that's how teams blow windows of opportunity they never get back. This isn't about scapegoating. It's about reality. The offensive line coach wasn't ready for NFL pressure, and the Browns are finally acting like they understand the cost. Let me know if you think the Browns waited too long to pull the plug, or if this reset will finally let Shedeur breathe. Drop your comments below, send this to someone who's been screaming at the TV every Sunday, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're not done with this story yet.